Hello friends, welcome back to Technogeek SFDC. In today's video, we are going to talk about automation in Salesforce. So before we start, let's try to understand in simple terms what does automation means. Okay, so automation is nothing but you are automating a process or you are making system to do some work which a user manually do. Okay, so for example, let's say there is a user who wants to create a case in Salesforce. Okay, so there is a sales rep who is taking information from user and creating a case in Salesforce, and then the agent notifies the user with all the case details that yeah, this case has been raised on your behalf. So now here you have manual process of first you're creating the case record, and then you are sending an email to the uh, user who has requested for the case with all the details. But now let's say we make the system to send an email instead of any agent manually sending the email. So that is something called automation. It's a very small example, but you can definitely automate lot of complex logics, lot of complex business scenarios, and reducing the agent's time to complete any task. And by this, you are increasing the productivity of that particular agent or that particular user. Okay. So in Salesforce, we do automation by three means. Okay. So there are three ways of doing the automation in Salesforce. First is your workflow rule. Okay. So what workflow rule do? Workflow rule is basically it's a combination of a rule and certain action which you want to perform once the rule is satisfied. Okay. So it is basically a flow or it's a mode of doing the automation where you can you can perform some task or you can make system to perform some task so that agent's time or the user's time can be saved. Okay, workflows are basically used when you want to automate some simple process or medium complex process, not a very heavily complex process, but yeah, workflow supports automation of simple or medium complex processes. Now there's one more thing which I want to let you know, that after winter 23, uh, workflows are not going to get supported in terms that you will not be able to create any new workflow rules, but yeah, existing ones you can definitely edit and you can use them, or existing workflow rules will be working as is. They are not going to get you can say retired in terms you cannot create any new workflow rule. So that is one of the things, but it's always good to know that how workflow rules and what are different parameters of workflow rules and its actions, so that it will be used in your current projects as well, so it will be easier to understand how the automation is working in your current system. So workflow rules are or workflows basically in Salesforce a combination of your workflow rules and what actions you want to perform once the rule is getting or the criteria is getting satisfied. Okay, so this is basically combination. Your first thing is workflow rules, where system checks that which particular workflow is satisfying the current criteria, and then what are the actions you want to perform once the criteria is being satisfied. Okay, so from action point of view, in workflows we have four types of actions. First one is a field update. So you can update any field on the current record if so for example, let's say you have case record. Okay, and then on creation of case, you are checking that if the case closed date or case created date is in current year. Okay, then you want to make some checkboxes true. So these types of field update where you are making the checkboxes true. Okay, this is also a manual task which you can automate via using the field update workflow actions. Similarly, you have another option of sending in email alerts. Okay, so you can send emails to the users or to the contacts from system whenever any record is getting created or any record is getting updated. So that is being taken care by email alert workflow actions. Next is your task creation. So as soon as let's say case is getting created, you want to create a task for agent for a follow up. Okay, so those types of process where you want to create a task and associate it with a case, this process can be taken up by the task creation. Okay, so that as soon as the case is getting created or updated, you are creating a task and assigning it to the agent so that agent can follow up with the user who has requested for the case creation in Salesforce. So this is one example. Task is nothing but it is a object in Salesforce, so you can create the records on the task object. And last one is your outbound message. So outbound message is basically a single line integration what we can do. Okay, so basically, let's say you get some scenario that once the case is getting created, okay, and then you need to send this data to third party system. Okay, so there is a way there is a way of sending this data. There are multiple ways of sending this data to the third party system, but outbound message is something called single line integration, where you hit the third party URL and you can send the data without writing any piece of code. You can just do it via configuration. Okay, this is kind of fire and forget mechanism of integration. So we will talk about different integration mechanisms as well in our later videos, but you can consider this as a fire and forget, where you are not expecting any response from the third party system currently. It's just that you are just sending out the information from Salesforce to a third party system. So this is called outbound message. So outbound message is also supported in workflows. Okay. So these are the four types of actions basically which is being supported on any kind of workflow. Okay. Now let's see in action how usually workflow looks like. Okay. So I have couple of workflows created, my previous workflow, so I can show you that what all options basically you get in the workflow. Okay, so let's say, so as I was telling, workflow is basically combination of a rule and then actions. So what system do is, let's say if you are working on any of the record, system will come and check that based on your record data, which particular workflow rule is getting satisfied. So as you can see, we have the rule criteria here, and then system will come and check whether this rule criteria is being satisfied. If yes, then it will check what is the workflow actions under it. Okay, and once you will check what is the workflow actions, the system will execute these actions. So workflow rule is basically for the rule creations, where based on the record, what are actions you want to perform. Okay, now let me edit this. So here, first thing you will see is evaluation criteria. So what evaluation criteria means, that when you want this particular workflow rule to be evaluated. Okay, so first option is when the record is getting created, basically created. So as soon as the record is getting inserted, that time this workflow rule will be evaluated. Okay, so it will not be evaluated then during the update, only during the creation of the record it will be evaluated. Okay, next is created and every time it's edited. So what happens? So in this scenario, as soon as the record is getting created or it's being updated, this workflow rule is getting evaluated. Okay, so let's say you have a case, okay, where when you first created the case, you had the status as open, okay, and priority as high. So this workflow rule got executed. Now let's say there is some checkbox on the same case and you just updated the checkbox. Okay, so once you updated the checkbox again, your workflow rule will be evaluated and it will check whether the status is not equal to close. So since our status is open and the priority equals high, then again the actions under this workflow rule will execute. Okay, so this is what created and every time it's edited do. Okay, now there is a third condition as well, created and anytime it's edited to meet subsequent criteria. Okay, so there is a difference between your option number 2 and option number 3. Option number 2 says that anytime you are updating the record, okay, and it is meeting the criteria, then execute the workflow actions. But your option number 3 says that when you are updating the record, okay, during that time you are updating the fields to satisfy this criteria. So let's say if you're selecting third option, okay, and you have case with some checkbox, okay, and you have case status as high open and case priority as high. Now, when you're making the checkbox as false and you try to save the record, okay, this particular workflow rule will not be executed. Why? Because criteria contains status field and priority field, and you have not changed any of these fields. You have changed some other field. Okay, so that's why this workflow rule will not be executed. But if you are changing status or priority field, okay, and after making the change, your this particular rule is getting evaluated and get coming out as true, then your uh, actions will be performed. So let's say you have a case with priority earlier as low, okay, and then you updated the case priority as high. Then this workflow rule will get executed because third condition is telling that after making the update, your criteria is getting satisfied because you updated the field which is present in the rule criteria. I hope you got an idea of what is the difference between your second and third. Second option is anytime you update the record, if the criteria is meeting, fire the workflow rule. Third point says that if you are updating a record to make that particular criteria as true. Earlier it was false. After this update, the criteria is becoming as true. Then only fire the workflow actions. Okay. So this is called evaluation criteria. Now next is your rule criteria where you are setting up the rules. Okay. So you have two types of rule criteria. Either you have criterias are met where you can set the field, select the field, what is the operator and what is the value for that. You can have multiple fields selected here, and by default these all will be in AND condition. But if you want to add your own custom filter logic, you can just click on uh, filter logic, and then you can make the changes here, like instead of and you can keep or something like this. Okay, so this is when the criteria are met. Next is your formula evaluates to true. So let's say you have some complex rule, okay, which cannot be fulfilled with the normal drop and down and operator selector selection. Then you can go with formula, where you can define your own formula, which will get evaluated to see if the formula is returning as true or false. So you have both the option. Either you can just simply select the criteria, or you can define your own formula to use for the rule, and that particular rule will be then evaluated. Okay, so this is the part of workflow rules. Next is your workflow action. So we have created a workflow rule, and then next is a workflow action. Okay, so here under this currently you are seeing a lot of actions already here, but when you will be creating a new workflow rule, this list will be empty. So you can just come here, click on edit, and then you have an option for add workflow actions. Okay, so here you can see whatever the actions we discussed, like you can create a new task, you can send an email alert, you can do a field update or outbound message. Okay, so these four current actions are there, and if you want to select any existing action, for that you can select the last option, like select existing workflow actions. Okay, so you can just select one on one each actions, and you can see how you can set it up. So for example, let's say if I want to select a new task, so I clicked on new task. I have some mandatory fields which you can provide and then save. So as soon as my record is getting created or updated, it will create a task in backend and it will attach to the case. Okay, similarly I am having field update. So let me show you that as well. So in field update, like I can select if I want to update any field on case from workflow. Okay, that also we can do. Like if it is a pick list, then you can select a pick list value, whatever pick list value you want to by default add it, or you want to assign the pick list value or any field value you want to populate. That can done by using the field update. Next is your next is your email alert. So this is where you are sending an email. Okay. So here basically you can select an email template, whatever the email template you are creating, and then you can select a recipient. Recipient can be any of these, like it can be account owner, like the owner of the account associated with the case. So it can be an account owner or the owner of the case, or if you want any specific user to receive the email, so you can set all those stuff. And last is your outbound message. So in outbound message here, basically we provide the endpoint URL and then whatever fields we want to send to the endpoint. So we can select those fields. So endpoint will be receiving that particular field, and then the third party can decrypt that particular request and they can process it. So this is a kind of single line integration. So this is what we have in workflow rule. Okay, workflows basically. Now workflows are having one more you can say an interesting feature called time-based workflow. Okay, so let me show you that as well. So here you have something called time-dependent workflow action. So time-dependent workflow action means that let's say you have updated some record today. Okay, that is let's say on 12th of October. Now, if the criteria is getting met, then you want to perform some operation after 3 days. Okay, so this is where you are defining that some action needs to be performed after certain period of time. There we use time dependent workflow actions. Okay, now there is one catch here. Time dependent workflow actions can only be used when you are using the second option, that is sorry, I mean the third option. If you're selecting a second option, created and every time it's edited, you will not be able to use any time dependent workflow actions. Okay, so yeah, I will just show you how the time dependent workflow action also works. Okay, so here you have something called time trigger. So you can just select on add time trigger, and then you can select like after how many days or after how many days or after how many hours or like before how many hours you want to execute this you want to execute the workflow actions. So you can select that and save here so that whatever the workflow actions are present, okay, they will run, let's say considering the time what you have given. Like if you have given 3 days later, then the workflow actions will be fired 3 days later. Okay, let's say if the rule is getting evaluated as true, then your workflow actions will get fired after 3 days. Okay, and in between, if you are making any changes, okay, so let's say you have created a case record with priority as high initially. Okay, so what it did, it came to this workflow rule and it got evaluated as true, and then it queued the actions to be executed after 3 days. But let's say in between, in between the agent comes and he or she changes the priority to low. Then what happened to the queues? Okay, or then what happened to the action which is present in queues? So those actions will get removed from the queue. So after 3 days, no one will get any kind of email alert or any field update. Okay, so this is the concept of time dependent workflow what we have. So we have two types of actions here. One which you want to perform immediately, another which you want to perform after certain period of time. So this was an overview of what workflows are and what are the different types of workflow actions we had in the Salesforce. And these were heavily used in our Salesforce org till the time it was not getting deprecated, or I would say it was not being stopped from creation. So, but there is one catch in workflow rules, that you cannot control the order of execution of the workflow rule. Okay. And this is one of the biggest demerit. That's where process builder came into the picture. Okay. So our next automation tool, which is present in Salesforce, is a process builder, which you can say it's a higher version of your workflow rules. Okay, so basically, process builder also supports multiple types of automations, like multiple types of triggering point. One is either when you are doing any record change, then you can trigger it. If you're doing some kind of integration using the platform events or some kind of events, then also you can trigger the process builder. Okay, and third is, let's say you have some reusable process builder which you want to call from some other process builder. In that scenarios also you can build some process builder, so one process builder can be called from other as well. Okay, so these are the three types of triggering point of any process builder. Also, process builders have had its if and else conditions. Okay, so that it was easy to maintain the order of execution. So let's see how process builder was working. So for going to process builder, you can search for process builder and come here. Now you will get some screen something like this. Okay, here you'll be having a button called new. So you can just click on new button. Okay, and then since process builders are also going to get deprecated, so you might see this option, this particular message that create in flows. Okay, but I'll just continue in process builder to give you an idea of how the process builder will work, or if you have some existing process builder, how it's going to be. Okay, so I'll just give as demo builder. Now, again, as we were discussing, you can select what will be the triggering point of this particular process builder. Okay, so in our case, we will just select a record change and I'll click on save. Okay, as you can see, this is already looks like a kind of flow in a flow manner to give a more more brief idea of how this process is going to work. Okay, so first thing you need to select an object. Okay, object on which you want this particular triggering to work. So let's say in our case it should be case. Okay, I'll just select a case. Now what should be the triggering point, whether it should be only the record creation or it should be creation and updation. Okay, so let's say I am selecting created or edited, and then I can click on save. So once this is done, okay, just keep in mind once you have selected the case and all, you cannot edit it. Okay, so just be careful during the first time selection of the object. Okay, now next is your criteria. Okay, so here you need to define the criteria which will be validated. So let's say there is any update on the record, update on the case record. So I'm just selecting, let's say, check for status, and then I have basically this criteria where I'm checking for the current status of case. So here I will just select case status equals, and then let's say I'm selecting as new. Okay. So similarly, you can just keep on clicking add rows, and you can add multiple conditions, whatever is your business need. Okay. And then you can just click on save. Okay, now you can see you have two arrows. One is true and one is false. So we were talking about if else condition, right? This is the same thing. You have a condition. Now, if your condition is getting satisfied, then what you want to do, and if your condition is not getting satisfied, that then what you want to do. So let's say I'm creating a case with status as new. So what will happen? This particular condition is getting true, and it will now execute my true path. So here I can add actions. So what actions are basically similar to workflow actions. Here also we can perform multiple actions, and you have lot of extra, you can say added feature or added action in comparison to workflow rules. Like in workflow rules, you have around 4 actions only, but here you have more than 4. I would say a lot of options to work on. Okay. So if you want to have a look, basically we have something like you can create any uh, You can create or update any record. If you want to post something on the chatter, you can do that. If you want to call any Apex class, you can do that. So you have lot of other you have lot of actions to perform. So for example, you can just click here, like if you want to do some email alert, if you want to execute a flow, or if you want to post to chatter, or some quick action, some custom notification, or if you want to submit for approval process. So these types of actions you have. Okay, so let's say I'm selecting an option of whichever is easy currently. So let me see. Yeah, so let's say i'm just I'm just giving an update case. And then you have an option whether you want to update on the same case record which is triggering the process builder, or whether you want to update any related case. So I want to update the same case which has triggered it. Okay, and then again you have two options here. Either you want to do this update further based on some condition, or you can just directly update it without any condition. So it is kind of two level check. First is your if conditions, okay, where we have checked that if the status is new, and then next is on your action level. That let's say in the true path, let's say you have two or three actions, okay, but out of three actions, you only want to perform two action if the case status is new, and you want to perform the third option only if the case status is, let's say, closed, something like that. Okay, so you can set the conditions on the action level as well. This feature was not available in workflow rules, which has come up in the process builder. Okay, so right now I'm just selecting no criteria, just update the record, and then you have a lot of fields which you want, whichever fields you want to update. So let's say description, demo description. So this is one action which I have defined. Okay, and then I can click on save. So you can see that this process builder will first come and check if the case status is new. Then it will come to true path and it will start executing the, or it will basically start evaluating the actions and execute them. So you can add multiple actions here, not only one. You can have option of adding multiple actions in the same path. Okay, now after that, after the actions has been executed, okay, you have option. Either you want to stop the process builder there itself, okay, or next thing, or another option is whether you want to check for the next node as well. Next node means, let's say you have some criteria defined here. Okay, so let's say I'm just checking description contains demo. Okay, so now what we are doing here, if let me just define this description check, and then I just click on save. Okay, now I have two checks here. Okay, first, first when the process builder is getting executed, it will first check the condition that if the status is new, then it will come here and it will perform the actions. Okay, and then further it will check that what is the next command for process builder, whether the command says you need to stop or you need to get terminated, or you want to also evaluate the next condition as well. Next conditions means this is description check. So if I'm keeping this as stop here, then process builder will just execute this update case action and it will get terminated. But if I'm selecting evaluate next criteria, then what will happen? See, so then what will happen? Once the action is getting performed, it will come to next node, and now it will come to description check node to check. Okay, and then if the if the description contains demo, then again it it will see if the description is containing demo, then it will come and execute the actions. Okay, so these are the two options which you have, whether you want to after performing the actions, whether you want to terminate the process or you want to go to the next node to check it. Okay. So this is how, and now if you see, you have more control over your process builder and the order of execution. Okay. Now in workflow rule, let's say if I define the same thing, let's say I create two workflow rule, one is checking for status, another one is checking for description check, then there will not be any particular order of execution. Okay. And that's why you might get a deviated result. But here in process builder, as you are seeing, you have more control where you're defining that yes, for first I need to check for the status and then I need to check for the description. Okay. So this is the advantage of process builder over workflow rules. Okay. Where you can have one place for all your condition with a better order of execution, better handling of order of execution, and more actions. Like you have more you can say work similar to workflow actions, you have more process builder actions, more things you can do from system with click and save. Okay. So this is the advantage of process builder, and process builder is also very much in demand once it came in, because it was providing lot of options to the end user or to admin or to any developer. It was providing lot of options. Okay. And one more thing is, once you create any once you save any process builder. Okay, so let's say I have this, and then I'm just clicking on action, or I'll just remove this one. Now, once I activate this, okay, so until unless you're not activating, your process builder will not get executed. Okay, now once you activate it, okay, then further, if you want to make any change, then you need to clone the process builder every time. Okay, because once it is activated, you cannot further change the content of the process builder. So what you need to do, you need to just clone it, where you have two options: either create a new altogether new process builder, or you can create a version in the same process builder. Okay, so process builder can have lot of versions into it, and at a time only one version will be active. So you can just create a new version, and you can just click on save, and then you can make your necessary changes and activate that particular version. Okay, so this is how process builder works. So we have seen here basically what your workflow rules are, what your process builder is, and third is your lightning flows, and which is a very powerful, you can say, automation tool currently in Salesforce. Uh, so for lightning flows, I have already created a whole series of what are the different parts of lightning flows you have, how you can use them, and what are the different elements are there. So I'll post that link into the description, and you can just have a look into that whole series, and definitely you will get a much better picture of what lightning flows can do. So in this video, we had seen till now that what are the different types of automations we can do, what are the different types of automations tools we have in Salesforce, where we have workflow, we have a process builder, and then we have a lightning flow. So if you want to visualize in uh, easy to hard business process automation way, then for easy business process automations, you can go with your workflow rules. If you have some medium to little bit of complex executions or complex automations, then you can look for a process builder. And if you have something very much complex, you can definitely go for a lightning flows. And since Salesforce is kind of deprecating the workflow rule, so my suggestion would be that you can start look into lightning flows, because Salesforce is investing a lot into that, and they're coming up with a lot of new features into lightning flows. So in with this context, we will close up the today's video. I hope you liked the video, you got an idea of the automation, and let us see you soon. We will definitely come up with more videos. So thanks for your time, and do subscribe the channel. Thank you.